CNN political commentator and Dawson Springs, Kentucky native Scott Jennings joins me now. Scott, I'm so sorry about what you're going through right now. This is your hometown. You know people who lost their lives in the tornadoes. I understand the tornadoes actually hit your childhood home and the homes of your family. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm okay, and thankful that my family that I've been able to reach throughout the day is okay. My dad, thankfully, who lives right in the middle of town, was able to go to another house last night that had a basement, and he rode out the storm in a basement. But his house is not inhabitable now. There's some part of it left, but it's basically destroyed. He lives on a little street called Oak Heights, which is one of the main residential arteries of Dawson Springs, and the house that I grew up in is gone. Right across the street, my grandparents' house that I probably spent more time in than my own home is gone. My dad was telling me earlier tonight that he was walking up and down Oak Heights, and he encountered a man who was standing at the end of his driveway looking back up to where his house used to be and was just bawling. And my dad said he put his arm around him and said, well, it's going to be all right. You know, we're on the right side of the dirt still, despite all of this. And they had a little moment there where I think I heard Ed say people are stunned. I think that's what they were. It's just stunning to see a place that looked the same way for decades completely changed forever. So it's hard to, you know, this is a little town. It's tight-knit. It has one school. You know, there's not a lot of industry there. Everybody knows everybody. It's extremely rural. It's an old coal mining town. This is a coal mining part of West Kentucky. You know, very religious town, a lot of churchgoers there, so just a lot of interconnectivity in the community, and I've talked to enough people today to know just how upset folks are trying to scramble and find people that they haven't been able to reach yet. My dad told me there's an apartment complex a street behind where he lives, and you know, it's just completely flattened, and he said that if there were people in that when it went down, I don't know how they made it out. So everywhere you look, it's devastation. I mean, the only thing to compare it to, when I look at the pictures of it, I keep thinking about, like, if you watched a World War II, you know, documentary, or you know, scenes from a war zone where bombs have gone off. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing in Mayfield, and I don't know what else to compare it to. It's so similar.
It's so true. That is exactly what I can't get over is like the entire town is just gone. I mean, it was like last night before this tornado moved through, before 9:30 p.m., this was full of cheer and Christmas lights, and the town was full of life and soul and heart. And then this tornado comes through and takes the entire town down, decimated. Here in Mayfield, here where you grew up, and you know, you think about the people. Scott, we're both from Kentucky, and I just these are salt of the earth people, right? They just good people, kind people, that strong sense of community in these small towns you were talking about. And so they're fortunate to have each other, but this recovery in Dawson's, where you grew up here in Mayfield, it's going to be a long time.
I don't know how to even begin to wrap my mind around rebuilding, because I mean, you think about just under normal circumstances, you know, the building materials and supplies, and you know what it takes to get something built today. I mean, there's a lot of wait time in that under normal circumstances, and you think about the number of homes and businesses that have been devastated. I think about projecting out into the future. How long will it take to not rebuild one town but several towns? I mean, you're talking about a huge swath. And where will people go? As you know, on the ground there tonight, it's very cold. It's going to be colder still as we get into the winter here. And even the homes that have some part of them left are not inhabitable. They've had their windows blown out. The roofs are gone. So I think housing is an issue. I think it's a long-term issue. And I think thinking critically about how to get enough supplies and labor into Western Kentucky to even begin thinking about how to rebuild is a mind-bogglingly complex thing to think about right now. So my heart goes out to all these families, business owners, homeowners, people who know they can't locate. I know personally some of the names of people who I know have died in Dawson. I don't think they've been released yet. And you know, I know some of those families that grew up with some of their children and went to school with some of them. So by the way, one thing that hasn't been reported today, this town of Dawson Springs just a few weeks ago went through another trauma. They had a very popular local high school student who had just graduated. He went off. He was a freshman in college. He had come home. He was killed in a car wreck, the entire town was literally just at his funeral just a few days ago at the high school gymnasium. And so there's been this series of traumas in Dawson, starting with that local boy's, McKnight was his name. He died, they had the funeral, and then a few days later they had this tornado. So it's just been one hit after another for that town in Hopkins County.
That is so much to even just process. I can't imagine. And Scott, I'm so sorry to hear about the fact that you lost people that you knew from Dawson's. Thank you for coming on, sharing your personal story, your perspective on where you grew up.
Yeah, thank you. And I do think, Pam, it's important that everybody should listen to the governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear. He gave some information today about how to help. So there's a relief fund, Team WKY, relieffund.ky.gov. That's the official unified place if you want to make a donation. And he also said there are critical blood shortages. So if you happen to be in Kentucky and you want to give blood, those are the two best ways to help, according to the governor, and I think we should listen to what he says.
I think that's so important to say. And also, as you well know, Scott, often after a tragedy, there's so much focus right after it happens, and then people's attention turns elsewhere. But as you pointed out, this is going to be a very long road to recovery, and the people here in Kentucky and the other 5 states impacted by these tornadoes, they're going to need help for many weeks, months, perhaps years to come. Thanks again, Scott.